They told you Bitcoin was freedom, a digital escape, a rebellion against everything broken in the world. But what if that was never the truth? What if the moment money became digital, power did too? And what if the same technology that promised to liberate you is quietly learning how to govern you? Machiavelli wrote that every revolution carries a secret. The people believe they are gaining power, when in reality, power is merely changing hands. So ask yourself, who really controls a system no one claims to own? Who shapes a market that reacts faster than human thought? Who benefits from fear, volatility, and the belief that decentralization means freedom? Because here's the part no one wants to admit. When money leaves the physical world, it doesn't become free. It becomes programmable. And anything programmable can be controlled. Bitcoin did not remove authority. It reshaped it. It created new rulers without faces, new laws without legislators, new obedience without chains. This isn't conspiracy. This is structure. This is psychology. This is the future Machiavelli would have warned you about. A future where you don't notice the empire forming around you, because you're too busy celebrating the illusion of escape. So listen carefully. Because what you're about to learn is not about Bitcoin. It's about power and the silent hands rewriting the world. Through digital control, power has always needed a medium. For kings, it was land. For emperors, it was armies. For governments, it was institutions. But in the 21st century, something new emerged. Power encoded in mathematics. A form of authority no ruler could command, no priest could bless, and no army could silence. This was the world Bitcoin walked into, a world that had forgotten what power really is. A world drowning in currency but starving for trust. A world ready for a new prince, though it didn't know it yet. Machiavelli would have recognized the moment instantly. For he wrote that new powers do not rise during stability. They rise during decay. And the old financial order was decaying quietly, elegantly, fatally. People no longer believed in their banks. They no longer trusted their governments. They no longer recognized the value of the money in their hands. When belief collapses, systems collapse with it. Machiavelli warned, power belongs to the one who restores faith, not the one who preserves tradition. Bitcoin arrived not as a currency, but as a correction, a rebellion disguised as a ledger, a protest written in code. It promised no king, no central bank, no intermediary. It asked only for belief, nothing more, nothing less. And that was the genius of its design. Because belief is the oldest currency in human history, older than gold, older than empires, older than kings. If people believe something has value, it becomes valuable. If people believe something has authority, it becomes authoritative. Bitcoin didn't build power by force. It built power by faith, a Machiavellian truth hidden in plain sight. But Machiavelli would raise an eyebrow here. He would ask, who is the prince? Who governs a kingdom without a king? Because power without a ruler is still power. And power always creates its own rulers, even if they remain unseen. Satoshi understood this. He left before he became a king. He vanished before he became a tyrant. He removed himself so no one could remove him, a move Machiavelli would admire. He warned rulers, never become the object of envy, and so Satoshi became an object of myth instead. Bitcoin's design made it impossible to seize, impossible to censor, impossible to silence, and that is why it became dangerous. Not because governments feared digital money, but because they feared digital power, a population armed with a tool outside the state's control. And here lies the paradox Machiavelli would immediately dissect. Bitcoin gives power to the people, but it also creates a new dependency, the dependency on the belief that code is superior to kings. When belief shifts, control shifts. Bitcoin created a new loyalty, not to flags, not to institutions, but to a protocol. Millions began to trust code more than their governments. more than their banks, more than the world they grew up in. This was not just economic rebellion. This was psychological revolution. Machiavelli knew that a successful revolution requires more than courage. It requires a new narrative of legitimacy, one powerful enough to replace the old. Bitcoin offered that narrative beautifully, transparent where banks are opaque, immutable where governments rewrite rules, finite where fiat is infinite, decentralized where institutions centralize profit, permissionless where systems demand obedience. This was not freedom. This was a new form of sovereignty. But every sovereignty creates its own architecture. And every architecture eventually creates control. Bitcoin promised liberation, but it also created a digital kingdom where belief itself is the ruler. It offered choice, yet choice became a funnel toward a new power system. Not a system ruled by presidents or bankers, but by miners, protocol designers, network validators, and invisible early adopters who became the new aristocracy. In the old world, kings stamped their faces on coins. In the new world, rulers hide behind hash rates and wallet addresses. Bitcoin didn't remove power from the world. It redistributed it, quietly, algorithmically, permanently. And this is where Machiavelli would lean forward. Because he taught that the one who controls the arms of the people controls the future. Bitcoin armed the people, but not with swords, not with votes, not with property. It armed them with belief, and belief armed with mathematics is more powerful than steel. But Machiavelli would whisper a darker truth. Arm the people too much, and they become ungovernable. Arm them too little, and they become slaves. Bitcoin sits between those extremes. A prince without a face, a kingdom without a palace, a currency without a country. The birth of digital power wasn't the creation of Bitcoin. It was the creation of a new hierarchy, an invisible order shaped not by land or lineage, but by code, computation, and consensus. A digital prince was born, and the world bowed not out of fear, but out of desperation for something pure, something incorruptible, something sovereign. But as Machiavelli would warn, every new power is loved at first, feared later, and obeyed forever. And Bitcoin is no exception. This is only the beginning, because power, once created, never remains idle. It learns, it grows, it manipulates, it controls. And this is where the story turns darker. Freedom is the most persuasive illusion ever engineered. No empire survives without it. No ruler governs without promising it. And no system controls without disguising its chains as choices. Bitcoin arrived wrapped in the language of freedom, decentralization, autonomy, financial independence, escape from the state. To the untrained eye, this was revolution. To Machiavelli, it was something else entirely. He warned that any power born from rebellion must immediately create a new order. Otherwise, the rebels become more dangerous than the tyrant they overthrew. To eliminate chaos, a new hierarchy must rise. And that is exactly what happened in Bitcoin. The world calls it decentralized. Machiavelli would call it leaderless hierarchy, an order without a king, but not without rulers. Because every system, no matter how idealistic, eventually organizes itself around those who arrived first, those who hold the most, those who maintain the infrastructure, and those who shape its narrative. Revolutions don't end power. They relocate it. Bitcoin didn't eliminate elites, it created new ones. The miners, they became the aristocracy of computation, the lords of hash power. Their machines are the drawbridges of the digital kingdom. Their electricity, the taxes they impose on the network. The whales, they became the old money dynasties of the blockchain. Silent, invisible, massive. They move the market with a whisper, crash fortunes with a single transaction, and trigger panic with a wallet signature. The exchanges, they became the modern banks, the gatekeepers of entry and exit, the border guards between digital sovereignty and traditional captivity. The developers, they became the scribes, the priests of protocol and code. With every update, they write the laws of this new kingdom, laws no government voted for, no citizen reviewed, yet everyone obeys. In any decentralized world, the real power belongs to those who understand the complexity others depend on. Machiavelli would recognize this instantly. He wrote, "Every state needs its guardians of knowledge, and those who own the knowledge own the state." Bitcoin is no exception. The illusion of decentralization is not that Bitcoin has no rulers, but that its rulers do not appear as rulers. In traditional empires, power is visible. You can point to the palace. You can name the king. You can blame the government. But in the Bitcoin ecosystem, power hides behind mining pools, liquidity controllers, protocol maintainers, whales with untraceable identities, hardware manufacturers, and those who control the flow of market information. Bitcoin didn't abolish authority. It dissolved it into networks and distributed it across invisible hands. That is why the illusion feels so liberating. People cannot rebel against rulers they cannot identify. Machiavelli admired rulers who stayed hidden. He advised princes, appear as one of the people, but act above them. Bitcoin's elites follow this perfectly. They walk among the crowd digitally cloaked, while directing market tides with movements no citizen will ever notice. And here lies the paradox. Most people believe decentralization means equality. Machiavelli would laugh. Equality in power is impossible. He wrote that men are too unequal in ambition, discipline, and knowledge to ever share power evenly. And the digital world has amplified this inequality even more. The early arrived before the majority understood. The skilled built while others doubted. The powerful acted while the crowd observed. By the time the masses rushed in, the hierarchy was already carved into stone, or rather, into blocks. But the illusion remains comforting. A decentralized system makes people feel sovereign even when they are not. It creates participation that feels like autonomy, and autonomy that feels like power. A system is most effective when people obey without realizing they are obeying. Bitcoin users follow unwritten laws. Never go against the whales. Never trade against the trends. Never question the code. Never distrust the network. Never exit the game. When trust becomes a reflex, control becomes invisible. And invisible control is the most Machiavellian form of power in existence. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler should govern in such a way that the people feel they are free, even when they are not. Bitcoin perfected this principle. You feel free because no president can freeze your wallet. You feel sovereign because no bank can deny your transaction. You feel empowered because the state cannot print more of your currency. But look closely. Freedom is not the ability to act. Freedom is the ability to act without being manipulated. And the Bitcoin ecosystem manipulates, but not through laws, not through force, and not through violence. It manipulates through narratives, market psychology, liquidity placement, algorithmic timing, influencer propaganda, and the collective belief that you are too early, too late, or never enough. People think they act independently. In reality, they are guided by cycles engineered long before they ever arrived. This is the essence of Machiavellian governance. Make people believe the power is theirs, and they will never question who benefits from their actions. Decentralization is a beautiful idea. But in practice, Bitcoin functions not as a democracy, but as a distributed monarchy, where the crown is invisible, the throne is everywhere, and the rulers do not claim their titles. The illusion persists because it must. If people saw the hierarchy clearly, they would resist it. But when the hierarchy is hidden behind algorithms, transactions, and anonymous addresses, resistance becomes impossible. Bitcoin promised freedom from the state and delivered it. But it also replaced that freedom with a subtler dependency. The dependency on a system that the average user does not understand, cannot influence, and cannot escape without consequence. This is not decentralization. This is decentralized obedience. The freedom is real, but the control is deeper. And Machiavelli would say, the most stable states are those in which the people believe they govern themselves. Bitcoin created exactly that state, but the next evolution will be darker. Because power, once decentralized, begins to search for new psychological levers. And that leads us to the force that truly governs Bitcoin, not code, not miners, not markets, but emotion. In the old world, kings ruled by decree. In the new world, markets rule by emotion. And Bitcoin, despite its mathematical purity, is governed not by code, but by fear and greed, the same forces Machiavelli dissected 5 centuries ago. He wrote that men are driven by 2 principal impulses, fear and hope. In crypto, these impulses are amplified beyond anything the ancient world could imagine, because markets today don't react to events. They react to emotion at scale, a collective pulse transmitted through screens, chat rooms, and charts glowing. Red or green. The blockchain is decentralized. Human psychology is not, and Machiavelli would warn, the crowd is predictable. The rulers are the ones who understand the crowd. Bitcoin is a perfect mirror of this truth. Every cycle, every crash, every pump, every rally follows the same emotional choreography. People think they are participating in a financial system, but in reality, they are participating in a psychological system, one engineered by invisible hands who understand how fear circulates. Because fear is not chaos. Fear is currency. And the powerful trade it like gold. The architecture of emotion Bitcoin rises not when the world becomes wealthy, but when the world becomes afraid. Fear of inflation, fear of recession, fear of government overreach, fear of missing out, fear of being left behind. Fear is the engine. Bitcoin is the response. Machiavelli would say, fear creates obedience faster than any law. Bitcoin thrives on the failure of trust. Trust in banks, trust in governments, trust in the system. The more the world collapses, the stronger its narrative becomes. This isn't coincidence. It's psychological symmetry. Because every financial revolution feeds on anxiety. When people fear losing everything, they search for something no one can take. When they fear manipulation, they search for something no one controls. When they fear collapse, they search for something incorruptible. Bitcoin becomes the answer, but fear becomes the foundation. And foundations built on fear are unstable. By design, volatility. The perfect weapon. Bitcoin's volatility is often called a flaw. Machiavelli would call it a tool of governance, because nothing manipulates the crowd like unpredictability. When the price rises violently, greed takes control. When the price collapses suddenly, fear takes control. 2 emotions. 1 outcome, obedience. People don't think in these moments. They react, they chase candles. They follow influencers, they obey narratives, they worship predictions. They stop questioning. They start hoping. Hope, Machiavelli says, is the easiest emotion to weaponize. Because hope blinds people to the one thing. They never want to see that they are being guided by whispers, guided by charts, guided by manipulators who exploit volatility the way ancient rulers exploited famine. The powerful use Bitcoin's chaos to harvest sentiment. Because sentiment is far more valuable than money. Sentiment tells you where the crowd will run next. He who controls the narrative controls the direction. He who controls the direction controls the profit. This isn't financial prediction. It's psychological engineering. The crowd thinks it's free. Ask the average user why they love Bitcoin. They will say, because no one controls it. They believe this sincerely. But Machiavelli would respond, the most controlled man is he who believes he is free. Look closely. Social media sets the mood. Whales set the traps. Institutions set the narrative. Fear sets the timing. Greed sets the behavior. The crowd follows the emotions fed to it. Bitcoin is decentralized. Its users are not. People panic at the same time. They FOMO at the same time. They trust the same influencers. They believe the same myths. They chase the same illusions. Independence collapses the moment you behave like everyone else. The crowd becomes predictable, and what is predictable becomes controllable. Machiavelli valued one kind of human more than any other, the one who does not think like the crowd, because the crowd exists to be ruled. Fear of loss. The ultimate chain. There's a deeper fear that rules the crypto world, stronger than inflation, stronger than volatility, stronger than recession. It is the fear of losing what you think you finally gained. Bitcoin gives people a taste of power, a glimpse of sovereignty. But once the taste is given, fear multiplies. People become terrified of losing their gains, their chance, their moment. This fear is not financial. It is existential. Machiavelli understood this intimately. He wrote, "Men suffer more from the fear of loss than the pain of possession." That is why Bitcoin's psychological hold is so powerful. It doesn't just threaten your money. It threatens your identity, your belief that you were early, that you were smart, that you were one of the few who saw it first. Losing Bitcoin is not about losing money. It's about losing the sense of superiority the system gave you. People will do anything to protect that feeling. Obedience born from pride is far stronger than obedience born from fear. The system needs you. Emotional Machiavelli warned rulers never to let the people become calm. Calm people think. Calm people plan. Calm people resist. Emotional people obey. The Bitcoin ecosystem needs Panichapunsferation Tezanintan accidents. They are psychological infrastructure, because emotional markets are profitable markets. And profitable markets are controllable markets. Bitcoin doesn't need perfect believers. It only needs emotional participants. That is why the system fuels hysteria from both sides. The maximalists preach salvation. The critics preach collapse. Both sides inflame the same emotions, and the crowd dances to a rhythm it never composed. The volatility is not a bug. It is the conductor. It ensures the crowd keeps reacting, keeps trading, keeps fearing, keeps participating. Because participation is the real form of obedience. The one who stands still is free. Machiavelli believed that true power belongs to the one who cannot be manipulated by emotion. Bitcoin does not enslave the logical mind. It enslaves the reactive one. Fear and greed are the invisible chains. The moment you break those chains, you stop being ruled by the market and start seeing the rulers behind it. Because the greatest threat to those who profit from emotion is a person who is no longer emotional, a person who no longer panics, a person who no longer chases, a person who no longer reacts, a person who watches the storm from above, calm, observing, sovereign. That is the Machiavellian ideal, and it leads us into the next layer of digital power, the ones who engineered the environment where the emotions occur. Power does not disappear. It migrates. When the old financial world cracked, Bitcoin didn't remove rulers. It replaced them. Quietly, efficiently, mathematically. Machiavelli warned that every revolution produces new princes, not by intention, but by necessity. No system governs itself. No network maintains itself. No kingdom runs without hands. Even those built on algorithms require human guardians. Bitcoin's brilliance is not that it eliminated authority. Its brilliance is that it disguised authority inside machinery. And those who understand the machinery become the new aristocracy. They are not elected. They are not visible. They do not stand on podiums. They operate in shadows. The lords of the blockchain. 1. The miners, the barons of hash power. If Bitcoin is a kingdom, miners are its barons. They secure the gates, validate the citizens, record the history, and determine the pace of expansion. The average user sees mining as a technical process. Machiavelli would call it a strategic bottleneck. Because whoever controls the bottleneck controls the kingdom. Mining power has consolidated into few hands. Massive industrial pools, giant energy-backed operations, critical infrastructure facilities. Aligned with governments and corporations, decentralization shrinks every year. Distribution narrows. Power concentrates. This is not an accident. This is the nature of systems. Machiavelli wrote, "Men who hold great offices will always seek to preserve them." Miners are no different. The network depends on them. And dependency is power. 2. The developers, the invisible lawmakers. Kings write laws. Developers write code. The difference? Only one is elected. The Bitcoin protocol changes slowly, but it does change. Through improvement proposals, through consensus debates, through the silent influence of leading developers, a tiny intellectual class writes the rules of the network. Rules that billions must follow without reading or understanding. To the user, Bitcoin feels eternal, unchangeable, divine. In reality, it stays alive through the decisions of a few, the scribes of this new empire. If Machiavelli saw this, he would call them the technocratic princes. Princes who rule without titles, without armies, without crowns. Their authority is knowledge, and knowledge has always been the purest form of power. 3. The whales, the silent oligarchs. Bitcoin was born as rebellion. But rebellion is always most profitable to those who arrive first. The early adopters did not merely accumulate wealth. They accumulated influence, wallets holding thousands, hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of BTC sit like titans beneath the ocean floor. Each movement or refusal to move shifts the market, shakes the crowd, creates panic, creates euphoria. Whales don't gamble. They orchestrate. They buy when the crowd is fearful. They sell when the crowd is greedy. They remain silent while the crowd argues. Machiavelli loved such rulers. He said, "The wise prince is the one who lets others fight while he benefits." Bitcoin's whales have mastered this perfectly. 4. The exchanges, the gatekeepers of sovereignty. Decentralization ends the moment someone uses an exchange. The moment you sign up, verify your identity, upload your documents, accept their policies, you are no longer sovereign. Exchanges became the banks of the new world, but without the accountability of the old. They control entry. They control exit. They control liquidity. They can freeze withdrawals. They can liquidate positions. They can drown markets. Users trust them with billions because they fear the complexity of true autonomy. Machiavelli predicted this psychology. Men desire freedom, but fear the burdens it brings. So they choose custodianship and call it convenience. The exchanges smile, not because they are benevolent, but because dependency is profitable. 5. The governments. The shadow claimants. Governments do not control Bitcoin, but they control everything around it. They regulate exchanges, license miners, monitor block explorers, trace transactions, demand tax documentation, and issue compliance orders to every business touching the blockchain. They cannot shut Bitcoin down. So they do something far more effective. They absorb it, a strategy Machiavelli recommended. If you cannot kill the innovation, make it serve your interests. Governments discovered they don't need to destroy Bitcoin. They simply need to control access. Points, custody, layers, reporting systems, action funnel, centralized off-ramp surveillance. Protocols. Bitcoin is decentralized, but everything humans use to reach it is not. And that is where governments quietly push their power. 6. The corporations, the modern princes. There's a newer class of rulers, the corporate actors entering crypto, asset managers, payment networks, tech giants, energy conglomerates. They bring capital too large to ignore, but too powerful to resist. Corporations bring legitimacy, but legitimacy gives them leverage. Give a system legitimacy, and it must bend to you. This is the Machiavellian exchange. Power traded for acceptance. Corporations join Bitcoin not to participate, but to shape its destiny. They seek control in layers beyond the chain. Custody, ETFs, derivatives, settlement, institutional flows. Regulatory influence. Control the infrastructure above the chain. And you control the chain indirectly. The truth: Bitcoin users do not see. The average Bitcoiner imagines a world without rulers. But every system, no matter how decentralized, needs guardians and architects. Bitcoin replaced kings with miners, priests with developers, bankers with exchanges, aristocrats with whales, governments with regulators, empires with networks. It did not remove power. It redistributed power into shadows, and Machiavelli would whisper, "The most effective prince is the one who rules without being seen." Bitcoin's rulers fit this perfectly. They are hidden, distributed, anonymous, faceless, interconnected. Through incentives, not allegiance. They control not by command, but by architecture. This is the highest form of power, structural power, where the system itself enforces obedience without needing a ruler to enforce it. Bitcoin did not create digital freedom. It created digital feudalism, a hierarchy without thrones that feels like liberty from below and absolute control from above. But the final evolution is even darker, because Bitcoin is not the end of digital power. It is only the prototype. What comes next makes even Machiavelli shiver. Empires once needed walls, armies, and borders. Now they need none of these things. Because power no longer resides in territory, it resides in infrastructure. Bitcoin did not create a new financial system. It created a new model of sovereignty. One built on networks instead of nations, on code instead of constitutions, on belief instead of force. And every empire born from belief eventually becomes an empire of obedience. Machiavelli warned that people rarely see power until it has already become unbreakable. By the time they notice the chains have become the environment. The digital world is moving toward that environment now. Bitcoin was the prototype. The first draft of a future where money is not just currency, but a tool of psychological architecture. Governments studied it. Corporations imitated it. Banks feared it, then absorbed it. And from Bitcoin's blueprint, a new kind of empire began to form. One without kings. One without borders. One without elections. One without escape. The silent empire. Digital money is not the end. It is the beginning. Bitcoin created the idea that value could be sovereign, untouchable, mathematical. But government saw something else. If the people trust code more than us, then code must become the next throne. Central bank digital currencies are not competitors to Bitcoin. They are descendants of it. Its ideological children, twisted for political use. Bitcoin proved that money can be programmable. Wealth can be trackable, transactions can be permanent, identity can be linked to value, behavior can be shaped through incentives. Governments saw this and realized, why tax behavior when you can program it? Why punish citizens when you can condition them? Why rule by law when you can rule by software? Machiavelli understood that a prince should always choose the method of control that requires the least resistance. Digital money is that method, because no one rebels against what feels convenient, programmable. Obedience. Imagine a future where money expires if not spent, locks if you travel outside approved zones, limits purchases based on your profile, enforces health or carbon quotas, restricts dissonance from economic participation, adjusts its value based on your behavior. This is not fantasy. This is the stated goal of multiple governments today. Bitcoin did not cause this, but it inspired it. It showed rulers what is possible when money moves without friction, and what is possible when citizens accept digital reality as normal. The great irony is that Bitcoin was built to escape the state, but its architecture taught the state how to evolve. Machiavelli would say, "A wise ruler learns from his enemies more than from his allies." Governments learned from Bitcoin, and what they learned is how to build digital obedience. Networks, not nations, the future. Empire will not look like Rome. It will not look like America. It will not even look like China. It will look like a network. a matrix of interconnected systems controlling identity, currency, mobility, communication, reputation, opportunity. You won't live in the empire. You will live through it. Inside its platforms, inside its algorithms, inside its digital economy, Bitcoin began this shift by separating money from geography. Once separation becomes normal, control becomes fluid. Power moves from borders to databases. And Machiavelli would recognize this instantly. He wrote, "The prince who controls the channels of necessity controls the lives of all." In the digital era, the channels of necessity are payment networks, identity verification, social reputation, digital access, transaction permissions, mobility systems. Control these, and you control society more completely than any king who ever lived. Illusion of sovereignty. Bitcoin made people believe they had regained financial freedom. And in many ways they did. But sovereignty is not just having control. It is understanding the system that grants you control. If you depend on exchanges, you are not sovereign. If you depend on governments to recognize crypto, you are not sovereign. If you depend on influencers to guide your decisions, you are not sovereign. If you depend on emotions to navigate markets, you are not sovereign. Bitcoin gave the illusion of sovereignty to those who never learned sovereignty itself. And illusions, Machiavelli said, are the strongest tools of governance. He wrote, "Men are governed by appearances. Few see what we are. Most see what we seem." Bitcoin seems like autonomy. But the deeper system, the infrastructure above it, below it, around it shapes behavior through invisible incentives. This is not accidental. This is architecture. And architecture is control. Power today is not about money. It is about who controls the digital conditions through which money moves. Bitcoin is a tool, a revolutionary one. But every revolution becomes a structure. Every structure becomes predictable. And every predictable system becomes controllable. The future empire will not conquer land. It will conquer habits. It will not punish rebellion. It will prevent rebellion. It will not demand loyalty. It will simulate it. It will not monitor dissent. It will erase the conditions that allow dissent. Bitcoin started the digital era of autonomy. Now the world is moving toward the digital era of obedience, not through force, through convenience, through integration, through architecture, through design. Machiavelli would admire this, because he taught, the most powerful ruler is the one whose subjects obey without ever realizing they are obeying. Bitcoin gave us digital money. What comes next will be digital rule. The only question is, will you be a citizen of this empire or a strategist watching from above? The answer depends on whether you can see the difference between freedom and the illusion of it.